For 5 long years, Cale, the Apache chief's son, had wandered through life like a man without a soul. Once fierce, proud, and full of fire, he was now a shadow, hollowed by loss and the relentless weight of grief. Every day was a mirror of the one before, cold, silent, and unyielding. He moved through the village and the surrounding lands with the strength of his body intact, but his spirit had been fractured, his laughter extinguished, his joy stolen by memories that refused to fade. He could feel the eyes of his people on him, sometimes filled with pity, sometimes with fear, but he no longer had the energy to meet them with anything but silence. Cale spent his days wandering the rugged valleys, hunting or tending to his duties with mechanical precision. The wind that whispered through the canyons offered him no comfort. The sun's warmth could not reach the chill in his bones, and even the laughter of children at the village edge sounded distant, like a memory of a life that no longer belonged to him. He had tried to push away the pain, to build walls around his heart, yet it clung to him, relentless, a ghost of everything he had lost. One evening, as he returned from the hunt, Cale's gaze fell on a small convoy of prisoners being escorted by soldiers through the valley. Among them was a young white woman, visibly pregnant, her clothes torn and soiled, her face streaked with tears. She stumbled along the path, her hand protectively over her belly, sobbing quietly but persistently. For a moment, Cale felt a strange pull, a recognition of suffering he knew all too well. She was a stranger, yet her grief resonated with the echoes of his own pain. Hidden among the rocks, Cale watched her struggle, her vulnerability piercing through the numbness that had kept him alive for so long. Something about her defiance in the face of helplessness stirred a long-forgotten spark within him. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of compassion, a longing to act, to shield, to connect. The instinct to look away warred with the pull to step forward. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Cale's frozen heart began to thaw. That night, as the moon cast its pale light across the valley, Cale sat alone, staring at the stars and thinking of the woman. A thought, simple yet terrifying, formed in his mind. Maybe in saving her, he could begin to save himself. And in that moment, the broken Apache chief's son realized that the path before him would not be easy, but it might just lead him back to life. The next morning, Cale returned to the path where he had last seen her, his heart taut with a mix of caution and urgency. The prisoner convoy had moved on, leaving only footprints in the dust and the faint echo of suffering behind. He knew the guards would not linger long, and that if he hesitated, the opportunity to intervene might vanish. As he crept through the rocky terrain, every muscle in his body was alert, every sense heightened. He had spent years mastering stealth and survival, but now, for the first time in 5 years, he moved with purpose beyond mere duty or vengeance. He moved to protect another human life. Hours later, he spotted her again. She struggled under the harsh watch of the soldiers, her steps faltering with exhaustion and pain. Her face was pale, streaked with sweat and tears, and she clutched her swollen belly as though it were a fragile treasure. Cale's chest tightened at the sight, a familiar ache stirring deep within him, a mix of sorrow, anger at the cruelty of the world, and a protective impulse that refused to be ignored. He waited, hidden, until the guards moved far enough ahead, their voices fading into the canyon walls. Then, like a shadow flowing with the wind, he approached, swift and silent. One hand moved to disarm a guard, a motion precise and lethal, while the other guided her away from immediate danger. She froze, fear etched into every line of her face, and whispered, Who are you?" Cale didn't answer at first. He studied her carefully, noting the exhaustion and fear, but also the spark of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. His silence, steady and unwavering, was a promise. She would not be harmed. They moved together, slowly navigating the treacherous cliffs and hidden paths Cale knew so well. Her trust was tentative, fragile, but it grew with each careful step. When her legs faltered, he lifted her effortlessly, his arms steady even as adrenaline surged. Every step was a test, every breath a reminder that life hung delicately between danger and salvation. By nightfall, they reached a secluded grove known only to Cale. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting silver patterns on the ground, and she sank to the earth in relief. Tears streamed down her face, mingling fear and exhaustion, while Cale knelt beside her, his own emotions threatening to spill over after years of restraint. "You've suffered," he said quietly, voice low and unfamiliar even to him. "But you're not alone." She looked at him, startled by the sincerity in his tone. For a moment, the past and the present, fear and hope, pain and courage, hung in balance. In silence, a fragile understanding passed between them, and for the first time in years, Cale felt a glimmer of something he thought he had lost forever: connection. The days that followed became a rhythm of survival, cautious trust and quiet revelation. Cale guided her through the rugged terrain, teaching her how to move silently, how to read the signs of danger, and how to find sustenance where none seemed possible. She learned quickly, but it was more than survival that grew between them. In her presence, Cale felt emotions he had long buried: care, compassion, and a fragile, trembling hope. He watched her belly grow with life, and each day he felt a protective instinct he could not deny, a fierce determination to shield her from harm. At first, neither spoke much. Words seemed inadequate to bridge the chasm of pain that separated them from the world, and even from each other. Yet in every gesture, the offering of water, the lifting of her stumbling body, the quiet moments under the stars, they communicated without speaking. Cale discovered that healing was not about erasing pain, but about choosing to move forward despite it. And she learned that even after unbearable suffering, trust could be rebuilt and courage could bloom in the most unlikely places. One night, as the moon hung full and luminous above the grove, she confessed her fears. Her voice trembled with exhaustion, worry, and raw vulnerability. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, tears slipping down her cheeks. Cale took her hands in his, holding them gently but firmly, as if to anchor both their hearts. "You are stronger than you know," he said, his voice steady and resolute. "And you are not alone. I will be with you, every step." As her labor pains began, Cale's heart raced with both fear and determination. He guided her to a hidden shelter, carefully preparing a safe place for the child's arrival. The night was long, the cries of life mingling with the tension of their journey, and Cale's hands worked with calm precision, even as his mind swirled with memories of loss and hope intertwined. When the child finally emerged, healthy and wailing, Cale held both mother and child in his arms, feeling an unfamiliar, overwhelming surge of love and responsibility. The woman rested against him, exhausted but radiant, tears of relief and joy tracing her face. In that moment, the broken Apache chief's son felt a part of his own heart mend, stitch by stitch, as if life itself had offered him a second chance. He whispered promises he had never dared speak before, pledging protection, care, and devotion. Cale realized then that the deepest battles were not fought with weapons or strength, alone, but with courage, compassion, and the willingness to embrace life again. And as he looked at the tiny life cradled in his arms, he understood that healing was possible, even for a heart that had been shattered for 5 long years.